Hey guys, this is Georgia with Ancient Aliens, and you're listening to That One Time I Was Abducted by Aliens with Jamie and Bree.
Welcome back to another episode of That One Time I Was Abducted by Aliens. My name's Jamie.
My name is Bree, and we're two sides of the coin.
Bree, it's been a hot minute since we've been in here.
It has. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the phenomenons that happen on the 33rd parallel north.
Yo.
I think with our last episode talking to Jeremy, we kind of got into this realm of the possibilities of a certain area being kind of like a portal and hub for paranormal activity. And what we've learned is that there's not just one portal, there's tons of them.
Of course.
Probably the biggest one I can find, which literally spans the entire globe, is the 33rd parallel.
Yes.
So the 33rd parallel north, it's a circle of latitude that's 33 degrees above the equator on the Earth's plane. And what it is it goes through, North America, the Pacific Ocean, Asia, Africa, Atlantic Ocean. It's the entire globe. It goes all the way around. It covers a lot of space.
Mysteries of the globe.
What I've learned about the 33rd parallel
is the Earth isn't flat.
No, because it couldn't be, because then the line doesn't make sense.
Oof.
So if you look at the 33rd parallel, even if you look at it like on like a picture, it curves. And I tried to make my own version of a picture to put on Instagram, but the problem I was having is that I couldn't draw a straight line. Like, it can't be a straight line or else it doesn't hit everything, which then makes me believe that the Earth couldn't be flat. We'll throw that in there just for the flat earthers right off the top.
Okay.
Some people would say that the 33rd parallel is cursed. Some people would say that it has ties to the Freemasons.
Yeah.
I think the best place to dive into it to try to begin to understand is just to start with the numbers. Numerology is really important, even though a lot of people seem to skip over it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I don't think anyone pays attention to it enough.
No. Do you know what the number 33 is?
A master number.
Master number, master teacher, and it's the most influential of all the numbers in the world. It's one of those numbers that we had talked about in our numerology where, like, you don't pare it down. What are the other two you don't pare down?
11 and 22.
11 is vision, and 22 is vision with action, and the two of those together equal the master teacher number 33.
Actually, you know what's really weird? Obviously, I'm a numbers person. Everything to me is numbers. It's like, not haunts me, but it
follows you.
It follows me in my everyday life.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to look into this, there was a point where I looked at one of the links I clicked on, and it was like last updated March 12th, 2001 or something like that. And then my mind's like, oh my God, that's like 333. I look at the time and it was 12:12. I'm like, okay, 12:12, but I could also break that down to 33. This is kind of tripping me out. Anyway, it was just weird. It was one of those moments, one of those coincidences,
quote,
if you
unquote,
like.
Coincidences, as people say.
Yeah, where it was just a lineup in that moment when I was looking this up.
That is interesting. So if you know anything about numbers, then you know that the Freemasons are really into numbers as well. Numerology is kind of one of the biggest things that the Freemasons follow.
Geometry.
Sacred geometry. And the 33rd degree is the highest degree in Freemasons. It's like the biggest, highest one that you can get.
In the Scottish Rite.
In the Scottish Rite, that's correct. You have to always bring it back to the Scottish Rite, because at the end of the day, you can't be a 33rd degree Mason unless the Scottish Rite approves it.
The thing with Masons are there's so many different factions in them. There's so many of them, which makes it really mysterious on its own.
Absolutely.
It's hard to really understand, in my opinion. I think it's like layers on layers on layers on layers.
But I think they also kind of do that intentionally.
Oh, absolutely.
Freemasonry is a very deep, dark rabbit hole that you'll never know unless you're involved in the higher ranks of it. Period. End of story. We don't know. And I believe that part of it is when you become like a higher Mason, like you have to say that you'll never talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think you'd have to go really high up there.
Yeah.
Even to have a taste of what it's really about.
Let me just give you a few people who were Masons, just so you can get an idea of like what kind of caliber of people we're talking about. We got Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Mozart, Mark Twain. No, sure shit. Mark fucking Twain. Winston Churchill, Franklin D Roosevelt. And did you know he was given the honor of the 33 degree Mason inside of the White House?
Nice.
I know.
Special.
And then this one should come to like no surprise to anyone, and he was a 33 degree Mason, specifically J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh.
Just a little fusey here. So we can throw that out there. Just, we're dealing with very powerful people. We're talking NFL quarterbacks are Masons, political people, you name it, it's all over the spectrum of what kinds of people could be Masons. But it seems that the people who are in the higher degree of Masons tend to be people who are in charge of things.
What do you know?
What do you know?
And I feel like our country is founded on it.
I mean,
well, it is, technically.
It is, technically.
Yeah.
Even one of our Supreme Court judges was a 33-degree Freemason. Earl Warren, initiated in 1934.
Way back there.
Mm-hmm. He was also considered the Grand Master of California. That was the title given to him, so it was actually technically above a 33-degree Mason, but not really.
You know what's really weird about this whole, above thing, though, is that they even say that the 33rd degree Mason isn't necessarily above the 32nd degree Mason.
No, absolutely not.
So it's very fucking confusing.
It's just a title.
It's like, what the fuck?
It is. It's just a title at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, you get a special number.
Okay, so now we've talked about some numbers. We've talked about Freemasonry a little bit. Why don't we just start talking about the weird shit that happens on the 33rd parallel?
Let's talk about some of the hot spots
Okay.
that I think everyone would be familiar with, either places or events.
San Diego, Phoenix, Arizona, Dallas, Texas, Roswell, Baghdad, Israel, almost a huge chunk of China. I mean, too many to name. I think there's 7 major cities that it hits.
Some things pretty much happened in all of those cities, though.
Yeah, for sure.
It runs through Los Angeles in general.
Yeah, that Los Angeles, San Diego, Catalina kind of area. So what kind of brought us to the 33rd parallel subject anyways is I was talking to Bree that I wanted to do the Catalina Triangle as a topic, which is, I guess the best way I could describe it is it's kind of like our version of the Bermuda Triangle, where weird shit happens out there. We aren't necessarily having planes going missing, but there's a lot of UFO sightings out there. A lot of weird things happen on people who are, on boats out there going through it. So it's mysterious. It's not the exact same thing as the Bermuda Triangle, but it's kind of our, West Coast version of it.
I would say it's probably just a USO hotspot. That's the main area where USOs are being reported is in that area. So a lot of people are like, oh, maybe there's an underground base in there, and that's how they can get to the middle of the earth. There's all kinds of conspiracies about that. But I do hear a lot about people thinking that there's an underground alien base.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, and that they go in and out of that area, which is interesting because when I was looking at it, I happened to mention to Brie, I was like, ooh, interesting, it's on the 33rd parallel. And she was like, fuck it, let's do a whole episode about all of it. And I was like, down. I realized how many events that have taken place have happened along this 33 parallel. Let's just start with the Battle of Los Angeles in 1942. Happened within 2 degrees of the 33rd parallel.
And then you can go to Phoenix, Arizona, where the Phoenix, Arizona lights happened.
That was the largest mass UFO sighting in history with thousands of witnesses.
I think it's the coolest story. Really, I do.
It really is.
I would die to see the craft that everyone else saw. I think it's amazing. You know what's interesting, though? I also heard that Area 51 is on that list.
So then we also have Roswell, New Mexico.
Biggest.
One of the biggest in the world. Also why we're in New Mexico. Did you know that the first nuclear explosion took place there?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm. And
creepy.
Here's what's weird about that. Okay.
I think I know where you're going.
You think you know where I'm going? I'm going to Texas.
To the JFK assassination?
We're going to the JFK assassination because it happened exactly on the 33rd parallel. And he was replaced by Truman, who was the 33rd president, who was the person who set off the nukes in Japan.
Also on the 33rd parallel.
Exactly. Both of those cities straddled the line of the 33rd parallel, one on one side, one on the other.
So then, even if we were going to trace this back to the Masons and, all this stuff, do you think that they purposely planned his assassination on the 33rd parallel? Because there's this whole conspiracy of the Masonic line of death being the 33rd parallel.
The reason they talk about that is because death row.
Right.
Every state that is on the 33rd parallel is a death penalty state. Not only that, but I, again, extensively did research on this and pinpointed exact addresses of every death row chamber. And about 75% of the ones that are in these lower states are exactly on the 33rd parallel, which is weird. I mean, we're talking, I have the whole list here. We have the Federal Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas, Naval Consolidation Building in San Diego, the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Alabama. I mean, I can go on, in all honesty. I literally pinpointed all of them down and took out ones that weren't What's weird about it too is that even if it wasn't exactly on the 33rd parallel, they were within a half a degree.
Which is nuts.
That's so weird that they're all on that same line.
And I think that with the degrees, it's bound to vary.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it could never be spot on. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are very spot on, but other events are either a couple degrees on or off. Mm-hmm. It's got to be encompassed in the same type of phenomenon, whatever it is that's happening.
Here's a working theory that I've been running in my head, which I possibly could be it. So if we're talking back to Freemasons and we're talking about all of these numbers and these places being very significant, what it makes me kind of think of is rituals. And what something like maybe JFK being assassinated when he was where he was makes me think that there's a possibility that a ritual was being completed. Because if you think about it, you have FDR dies on the 33rd parallel. The 33rd president, Truman, is on top, and then Truman's the one who drops these bombs. So it seems like, and this is really putting a stretch out there, but it seems that the possibility of maybe JFK's death was some sort of a sacrifice in order to succeed in the quote-unquote war that we had going on.
Oh.
I know, but it makes me think that because of how ritualistic Freemasons are. And the fact that it's him, the whole 33rd president thing, the fact that it's on the 33rd parallel. At the time, you had a 33-degree Mason running the FBI. Like, it's so crazy that all of these things lead back to that. So it makes me think of some type of a ritual.
I could see that. So then let's keep going.
A lot of Freemason, like, buildings and, like, quote-unquote churches or temples or whatever they want to call them are all on the 33rd parallel. Like, that's without a doubt. It's not even something you have to pinpoint. There's literally hundreds of them across the country along that line. Can I make one other comment about JFK? Actually, two of them. Did you know that the day he died was 11/22? Do you want to know what happens when you add all those numbers together? They equal 33. Someone very close to JFK, his brother.
Yeah, he also died.
Guess where?
Where?
33rd parallel.
That's what I meant to say. Like, he also died on the 33rd degree parallel.
In LA at a hotel.
And it goes back.
It goes back, man.
Jesus died at the age 33.
Yeah, it also, Jesus predicted his death on the 33rd parallel at the Last Supper.
And isn't that weird?
It's super weird. Okay, so let's go to the other side of the world then. We're talking about Jesus. Let's go, we'll jump the ocean over here. A few things. Why don't we start with the biblical Garden of Eden is technically on the 33rd parallel. They believe that the Garden of Eden is where the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, where they meet at. They biblically, like people who believe in the Bible, assume that this area is the original Garden of Eden. And of
speculation.
Course, they're technically still searching for it, but if they had to name a place of where, like if someone put a gun to their head, like where is it? Everybody says the beginning of these two things. So that runs across the 33rd parallel. So it kind of makes sense that it would be there. We also have, which I find like super, super weird, Saddam Hussein's palace runs exactly on the 33rd parallel. Like it's literally, it was built exactly on the 33rd
Probably
parallel.
Purposely.
Oh yeah, for sure. It is exactly 33, like, which I find very fucking interesting.
Super weird.
In Africa, there is a large square and hexagonal pyramid in Morocco on the 33rd parallel. So we got pyramids on there. Guess what president was born on the 33rd parallel? Bill fucking Clinton, the 42nd president, was born in Hope, Arkansas on the 33rd parallel, exactly where his hospital was.
Excellent.
That's a good one, though.
I guess so. I was watching the show Sunday Morning, and it's like random things for every Sunday. And they were talking about the Sandy Hook shooting and how so many, well, actually, what's his name? Alex Jones or whatever. The really fucking annoying ass dude. How he started this whole thing that it was faked and all this shit. I guess the Sandy Hook shooting also runs on the 33rd parallel.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Of course it does.
I thought it was weird because I was looking at it. I was watching this thing about it. And then it was like an hour or two later, I found out that it was on the 33rd parallel. I'm like, what the fuck? Everything's just like too many things.
I would love it if somebody could take the time, and this would be painstaking and horrible, but to make an actual like timeline like that of like a picture of the United States, that line through it, and all the little things
events
that lead up. I started to kind of sort of do something like that and then realized how hard it was.
Oh
and,
my
like,
God, could you
immediately gave up.
imagine?
No, it's so hard.
Okay, so there's like a whole bunch of questions about Walt Disney.
Okay.
You know, like let's take Disneyland, for example.
Okay.
There's everything in Disneyland is hidden and it has meaning. And it's just like layers on layers on layers.
He was also a Mason.
He was a Mason, right? But he started off with the demo law, whatever it is. So then I thought in my head, bing, Club 33. I mean, if you don't know this, it's weird, but in Disneyland, there's this random doorbell, and it has a little thing you can flip up, and it says Club 33. You can't get into Club 33 unless you are invited or unless you're going to pay, like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like $15,000. But it started off as just a small club for Walt Disney and his close circle, and it's above New Orleans Square, whatever.
Where they serve the beignets at. It's above the beignets.
Yeah, that's New Orleans. And there's like a bar, there's a place you can eat, all this shit. And it just clicked in my head like, holy shit, Club 33. And then figures, I Google it on the internet, could Walt Disney have been a Mason? And then all this crazy shit popped up. Sketches of Mickey Mouse wearing weird shit, different symbolism. And I'm like going, holy shit, this whole time, is that where the fuck this whole Club 33 came from? Then I realized that Disneyland is on the 33rd parallel.
Yes, it is.
Wow, I go here so often, it's ridiculous. I never really thought about those things or put those things together.
What about if I told you, I might ruin Disneyland for you, but it's all right. What if I told you that Disneyland was just a giant place where we pay them a bunch of money to help them with rituals and we don't realize we're doing it?
I don't care.
Like
I have a great time.
Like a bunch of us standing in line and like doing all the things that we do. Like what if at the end of the day that place is just a giant like factory of rituals and us walking through it is like the motion that's propelling it?
Maybe, but who's to say the rituals are bad?
I'm not saying they're bad. I just said rituals. I didn't say good or bad.
Oh, then that's okay.
Just rituals
Everybody
in general.
has their rituals.
Yeah.
I have my rituals. It's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, but isn't that interesting though? It could be.
It could be.
It could be.
Who cares?
I'm
into it.
I agree. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
It just makes you want to go more often.
Honestly, yeah.
I gotta renew my pass soon. Might as well.
Might as well.
We'll just make a big family trip about it, and then we'll just go and study all the weird shit that is hidden there and try to figure all of it out. I mean, things are just like on top of each other.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to this whole 33rd parallel shit, and even with the Masons tied into it, it's just so much. It's like hard to even dig through and find out what is truth, what is fact, apart from people that perpetuate crazy conspiracies on the internet, because a lot of those things are going to become intertwined.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's the struggle of this kind of research, and maybe one of the reasons we did this podcast is, you know, as I was doing my research, I was like, God, I just wish somebody had all this information for me to read in one place.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh wait, that's literally your job. You're literally
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you're looking for all this information to put it into one place so everybody can understand it. And I was like, oh, God damn it. And then I realized, like, oh my God, I might be so lazy.
No,
and
it's
not
just
realized
hard.
it. Yeah.
There's so much. I would love to even just get into the Masons in general and try to explain that. And again, that's just going to be one of those things where it's layers on layers on layers. You know, there's even some shit on Netflix, Into the Secret Society of the Masons, and it's so ridiculous.
It's so
I'm like,
dumb.
come on, this is what everyone wants you to think it is. It's just some brotherhood, and I'm sure it is for a little bit, but once you get up the ladder, it's deep and it's deep and it's deep.
Well, you know, I've heard like some people who are like, they pass it down to their children and stuff. Like, I don't remember what I was watching or what this is in reference to or why I remember this, but there was like a family who was like, you know, one of like the guardians of the Freemasons, and like he was on his deathbed, so he made his grandson like make an oath to him and like gave him these things. And like, did you know that the Freemasons, like all over the country, there's literally buried mason jars full of money?
Sweet.
And like old gold coins and like diamonds and stuff that are hidden all over America. And that there's these certain Freemasons who are the only people in the world who know where it is, and they pass that down onto generations of somebody guarding like a weird mason jar in a tree.
That's super cool.
Super cool, but super crazy that you could be somewhere and like find old mason money. It's all over the United States in like the most rural, ridiculous areas you would never imagine. Like,
That's
just go out
legit.
to Montana, go to like the biggest field you can find, and just start digging. It might be out there. You never know.
My grandpa was a master mason. I've been meaning to ask my dad about it. Sandra said things and very like, they're not Satanists. It's not satanic ritual. It's not what you think it is. Very
the
like
first
guarded.
time someone very loudly is like, it's not about Satan, makes me immediately think it's about Satan.
But also because it's all over the internet as being something bad. And who's to say? People take secret societies as being something very bad. So,
I mean,
who's
well,
to
some of
say?
them are bad, some of them are good. We have no idea.
We really have no
idea.
idea, which also makes me think to them, you have no idea. And I mean, you used to know someone that said they were a Mason, right? So it's like, I mean, even with him, I guarantee he doesn't know half of this shit.
No, absolutely
So
not.
you could be like, I'll give you some information, but not all of it. It's like,
Well,
you don't even have all the fucking information I would want.
Yeah, not just that, but like if you're like a 33-degree Mason, I highly doubt you're going to tell anybody anything. You know what I mean?
Not. You tell him to fuck off.
Yeah, no, and you wouldn't even like play it up like, here, I'll tell you some information. Like, no, they'd be dead serious. Like, no, you can go fuck yourself. I'm not answering questions.
Yeah.
So whenever people come out with stuff about like the Freemasonry or someone's like, oh, I'm one and here's some shit, I'm always kind of skeptical of it because I'm like, I know a little bit about your rules and I know it's like Fight Club. Like, you don't talk about Fight Club and you don't talk about Freemason.
Yeah, like people on YouTube that will be like, an old 30-second whatever spills the secrets, get out now, or something stupid like that. It's like, no, I don't think so.
They'd take that shit to their grave.
Yeah.
They would never.
Hell no.
All right, back on track a little bit. Did you know that there is another president that died on the 33rd parallel?
Which one?
Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Oh, and he was a Mason? No, Churchill. Who knows? Maybe he was a secret one.
He might have been. So Franklin D. Roosevelt had a sudden death of it was a cerebral hemorrhage.
Ew.
So it was like a brain
That's in the
hemorrhage.
brain.
Yeah, it was a brain hemorrhage. On the 33rd parallel, he was in Warm Springs, Georgia at the time. And his last words were, I have a terrible headache. And he dropped down and died.
Horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you know his medical chart is missing to this day?
Oh, sketchy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Missing to this fucking day. And then also maybe some other things that got to do with like America. In South Carolina, where the Civil War started, where the first shot rang off at, was on the 33rd parallel. What's funny about it is there, in that same area, guess what there is?
Whoa.
A Masonic Lodge.
Of course.
And guess what that Masonic Lodge is called? The Mother Lodge of the World.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Right where the Civil War happened. Basically, someone just kind of stumbled out of a goddamn meeting, and they were like, Freemasons, let's shoot some bitches. And then, the Civil War started. That's not really what happened. I'm paraphrasing.
Know, but it's our history.
It's kind of what happened as well. The biggest thing we should talk about, and this will be the last thing we talk about, I don't know if you did any research on this, but Mount Hermon.
Yes, if you're trying to get biblical.
It always leads back to biblical because Mount Hermon is on the 33rd parallel.
Okay.
Not only that, but do you know what's at the top of Mount Hermon?
The UN?
The United Nations base, for no reason, is up there.
They could be anywhere the fuck they want.
That's true, but it's very interesting that it happens
uniting
to be,
the nations.
But it happens to be on Mount Hermon, where they said that a bunch of angels came down, not just regular angels, but giant angels, and they made a pact to come and impregnate all of the Earth women to make the Nephilim.
Who the fuck told you it was a pact?
That's literally what it said. They said that they made a pact.
Where did you read this from?
The internet.
That's not true.
That's what I heard.
Whatever, go on.
That's what I heard. This is what I've heard is that these angels made a quote-unquote pact to impregnate all the females.
They just went rogue and they started fucking impregnating humans because they were like, you're good looking.
Plan or no plan, they fucked a bunch of women and then they had the Nephilims, which was like this huge thing. So it's interesting that angels came down on the 33rd parallel. They fucked a bunch of humans and made weird Nephilims, which caused like a whole nother issue in our world. Then after all of that shit happened, the UN is like, oh, we gotta go back there and build a base so no one else is there but us. The fuck is that shit?
Damn, that might have to take every story in the Bible, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's the fucked up part of it. If you're talking about that 33rd parallel, you're talking about... If you go back, and if I were to just make a timeline of all the biblical things that have happened...
Fucked.
The 33rd parallel is fucked when it comes to that. Because if, in fact, the Garden of Eden is in that area where the two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, where they meet, that's 33rd parallel. Then you're talking about Mount Hermon, 33rd. I mean, there's so Jesus in the 33rd parallel, like all of it. It all lines up to that 33rd parallel. Does it all go back to religion? Or is it something like a secret society who took down all of these things that happened in this area and made a book out of it, and then it became a Bible?
That would go way, 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 way back, though. I don't think you should necessarily plug in with what is in the Bible as like a religion and just think of some of that shit is fact that happened and people wrote about it. Some of it. A lot of the things that happened.
Well, I just find it interesting that a lot of these stories that are in the Bible usually take place on the 33rd parallel. So it's interesting how all of that intertwines with each other. So it makes me think beyond religion. So like, let's just say the Bible is just a book, right? So somebody had to write that book. So what my question is who wrote this book and why is it they accumulated all of these stories about the 33rd parallel and put them into a book?
It's because it's a hot spot for shit.
But that's what makes it even more interesting. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
People don't realize that because when you get down to the core of like just calling the Bible a book and saying like what it's about, an alternative title could be weird shit that happens on the 33rd parallel.
Yeah. How about just shit in general, everything that's happened? Major events seem to happen on the 33rd parallel.
Absolutely.
So why?
If you had to say the 33rd parallel was something, what would you say it was? And remember, you can change your answer at the end of the day. It's not like this is like set in stone what you think it is. Of course, our ideas are always evolving. But as of now, with the information you've gathered, what do you think it is?
The only thing that could come to mind is some sort of natural ley line of, I don't know, some type of energy, of friction, negative charge. I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of unfortunate things there, but I feel like there's also just other shit that happens there that isn't necessarily negative. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to talk the major UFO sightings and events, those aren't negative. Mm-hmm. So then if they're just hot spots that were attracting UFOs, then there'd be some type of energetic pull that would make them want to go to those areas. Okay. I don't know how you would even explain that, but not to take it in a positive or a negative side.
Mm-hmm. I think that the 33rd parallel is the center of our globe without us realizing it. What makes me think that is because our axis is tilt.
Right.
And so I think that it changes the perception of where the center of our globe is.
Yeah.
Especially from space. So it makes me think that cosmically, that line, maybe from space, looks like the center, and that's why everything happens there.
But why? Why the center of the Earth? Why would that create something?
You know, I don't know. If I think about it from a cosmic perspective and I am a being on a spaceship and I found a new planet, what better place to start than right in the middle?
And
you
just
know what I mean?
All the way around?
Yeah, like, you know what I mean though? Like if I'm approaching a planet and I'm like, I want to explore it for the first time, like, fuck it, let's just jump right in the middle of it.
But then you would still be thinking of it in terms of how we see it and not generally the axis tilt on which it was on.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the perspective of it from space. It makes me think that from out there, maybe that 33rd axis makes it look like that's the center of the globe. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, okay, right here, this is where we'll start. And so everything starts there and goes out. That's
maybe
what makes me think that. I don't know. That could change. I have no idea. That's maybe just my little bit of perspective on it. I don't necessarily think it's like a quote unquote portal, kind of like how Skinwalker Ranch is or something like that, because I just think it's far too vast of an area to be called one portal.
Of course.
I do believe that there's a possibility that there's multiple portals across it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the universal language, which is numbers and mathematics. And there's something about the number 33 that's very important. Maybe something we'll never understand in our lifetime because we don't understand it cosmically. But there's something about that number that draws things there. That's just, it happens. I don't think there's a why or a how, or I just think that there's things cosmically and mathematically that we'll never be able to understand or to wrap our heads around, and shit just happens.
I think we should keep looking into it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think other people should look into it too and then see what else we can gather.
For sure.
It's one of those things that, like you said, maybe if we did some type of timeline or whatever, that could take a shit ton of man hours to even get that done. But to even think about it and try to think of why, and there's so much to get into with that.
Before we even can get to the why, we need to figure out the what, you know?
Exactly.
And
these are just the big ones.
Yeah, there's so many more small things that happen. You know, at the end of the day, like, I could be standing in Texas on the 33rd parallel and have my own experience, but, like, it's not like the internet's going to blow up knowing about what happened to me.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of weird things that happen.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine if it was, like, a higher percentage of people that were abducted were on the 33rd parallel?
Wouldn't it be really cool if we got in a car and we drove the entire 33rd parallel?
Oh, I would love to do that.
You know what? Who we should bring with us, too? Fucking Jeremy Corbell and make a documentary about it.
Oh, genius.
And it's just me and you. It's just me and you interviewing people. You know what I mean? We're going down. We're interviewing fuckers. And we're just like, you have a UFO experience? You have a UFO experience? And then we realize that everyone we talked to on the 33rd parallel, like literally everyone, has had a UFO thing.
That's what I'm really curious about that. That's a big question that needs to be answered.
So could that be are we officially trademarking that documentary
idea
right now?
Don't fucking steal our idea.
We said it. It's on the internet. What's the date?
It is 9/24/2018.
Thank you. Poor man's trademark.
There you go.
Make sure you guys do your own research on this shit. If you guys find stuff that we haven't said, let us fucking know. We love to hear about it.
So, Jamie, now what do we have going on?
Let's fucking do our Factor Sci-Fi. This week's Factor Sci-Fi is, did Elon Musk's Tesla catch proof of a UFO?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I like that.
We posted a video on our Instagram. You guys can go and check it out. And it's Elon Musk's Tesla with Starman in it. And it's just like floating around in space and shit. I don't know if you guys know anything about it. Part of the video, there is a series of flashes that happened up in the left-hand corner. Space officials, quote unquote, were real quick to jump out and be like, no, it's just the moon. It's just the moon, guys. You guys are just seeing a reflection of the moon. So. I'm going to have to hardcore fact it because there's no way that that's a fucking moon and that's full-blown multiple flashing lights.
The only thing that makes me question it is, could it be space junk and
like light reflecting
reflecting off of it from the sun?
So then here's my next fucking question then. So you can go and you can watch, I believe it's 20 uncut hours. What?
That's like so long.
I know.
So you can go do your 21 hours of research.
Yeah, so, okay. So Elon set this Tesla up into space. And the reason for doing it is because he was trying to test the payload weight of one of his rockets. And instead of just filling his rocket with a bunch of like random concrete, he was like, how cool would it be if we could send up one of our cars and we'll strap some cameras to it or whatever. So he sends it up there, but when he sends it up there and they have all the cameras on, they only let the battery last for 20 hours. And then the batteries die and the cameras are no longer functional. Or that's what they tell normal citizens. There's 20 uncut hours of footage out there that you can watch of the launch happening, and not once in any camera angle do you see space debris.
Sketchy.
So how is it?
So is it faked?
So we don't know. It's either that or this whole thing when people are talking about space junk and space trash isn't a real thing. So it depends on what you mean by that. Because when I hear people talk about space junk, especially like NASA, Neil deGrasse Tyson, or even like Bill Nye, they're like, there's this huge issue out there of space junk. Why is it that no one on Earth has ever seen a goddamn picture or a video of this quote-unquote space junk?
Wow.
I don't think that those flashing lights are just light reflecting off of space junk, because in that whole 20 minutes of footage, I never see one bit of space junk. I don't see another satellite. I don't see the International Space Station. Like, none of that shit. I don't see any of it.
That's questionable, oh my God, because so many people are like, he faked the videos.
Well, and not just that, but a lot of people think he faked it because the battery only lasted 20 hours, then it shut down, which doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to put a bunch of stuff into space and waste all that time and money, why weren't you putting on something on there that was more scientifically, you know what I mean? You had all that room in that car to put a 20-hour battery in there, Mr. Tesla? Come on. Is it that they only showed us the first 20 hours because that's where all the boring shit was?
Yes.
And then now that it's rotating through space forever, well, it's not forever. It's eventually going to collide with Earth, but, you know, whatever. Because it's just out there rotating. It has a weird rotation out by, like, the outskirts of our solar system. It kind of, like, right before Pluto comes back in, right before the Kuiper Belt, and makes another loop back around. So I have to say the weird flashing lights make me think a little UFO. So I'm going to have to fact it.
Fuck, I'm so in the middle.
Oh, you can't be.
How about I'll fact it too? Because I do think that he really did send that car out there. And I also believe that one of the reasons why he's having that breakdown is because he saw some shit and he has to be quiet, and he realizes that he's not going to colonize Mars because Mars has already been colonized. And his whole master plan of what he thought he was going to do with his life has already been done, and he has to shut up and be quiet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fact it.
I'm a big believer in the whole Elon Musk's Tesla out there with its cameras saw some shit that only he, you know, him and a few people saw, and now he's like freaking out and like, you know, snorting coke off of strippers, like, I don't know what to do with my life. Nothing really matters. Money's not important. Mars is already colonized. Like, I'm totally down for that entire scenario. Only one of our patrons this week commented on our Factor Sci-Fi, and it was Bobby from Not For Everyone podcast. And he said, sci-fi, Tesla viral marketing. Not all flashing lights are UFOs, but God, do I wish they were.
Wow.
I don't think viral marketing on that point, because I don't think Tesla sold more vehicles because they had a flashing light in the corner. I'm going to tell you right now, the majority of the people who are watching that video are like me and, you know, live in my mom's basement, and we don't really come up for air much. So I don't necessarily think that Tesla's the person, like I'm the person that Tesla wants to market to. So I'm not going to say marketing. I'm going to have to call you on some bullshit there, Bobby, but I love you.
So that's what it is. We double facted though.
I like the double fact. Bree,
Yes.
what are we up to next?
Our conscious quote of the day. Today's Today's conscious quote of the day is by Eckhart Tolle. Always say yes to the present moment. Surrender to what is. Say yes to life and see how life suddenly starts working for you rather than against you.
So I like the concept of that quote, but I'm going to find a little bit of an issue with the execution of that.
Okay.
So, like, I'm all about the positive vibes and say yes to everything. But if I'm walking down the street and somebody jumps out of a van and they're like, lick my asshole, I don't necessarily want to be like, you know what? Today I'm saying yes to everything, so why not? You know what I mean? So, like, I like the concept of that quote because, like, I do think that you should go out there with, like, this really positive attitude and this, like, yes. But I also, at the same time, I'm not trying to say yes to everything that comes in front of me. But how about everybody, like, at maybe once a day, say yes to something you wouldn't normally say yes to?
I can feel that. You know, it's interesting because one thing I like about Eckhart Tolle is he's very, like, just acceptance to what is. Mm-hmm. So I think what he's saying is, like, just start saying yes to life and see how things are working in your favor. Mm-hmm. It's more that if you have a resistance to something, then you're just not accepting it. So even, like, if whatever that person yelled something at you, you still have the choice to make it something negative, positive, or just neutral, which is still in your favor.
All right, I'll live with that. All right, Bree, let's get into the favorite part of our episode. We're getting to shout-outs.
Shout-outs.
Let's start with our patrons, and we'll start at the Skeptics.
Jan from the Good, the Bad, and the Just Plain Standard podcast.
The Truth Seekers.
Shayna, Jamie's mom.
Destiny at Destiny from Space.
Simon at Outro Version.
And then we'll go into the middle bitches.
Raya,
who was here last weekend. We love you.
Yeah,
we miss you.
we had so much fun.
Scotty at Scotty Doodle. And Bobby from Not For Everyone's podcast, who you can find at Pinball Bobby on Instagram. And the podcast is at Not For Everyone Podcast. And speaking of Not For Everyone Podcast, our Skeptic and Truth Seeker both put together, we have Adam. Who also hosts a Wednesday night love line thingy mabobber in Texas. So I don't know, go to his goddamn Instagram and find it because I don't remember the website. Next we have 8B, who has also created her own. She is a middle bitch and a skeptic.
Because she's the bomb, and you can find her at Weather Traditions.
Yes, and then our last and
definitely not least,
Matt, who is the Anything Is Possible level.
He's awesome. He's our one and only. We're very excited about it. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. And let's get into maybe some of the usual suspects.
Brian Jackson
and Two Schmucks and a Mic. We love you all.
Two Schmucks, no fucks. Also Oscar at OzCat408.
Hey, and Walkmore.
And John Perry at Designs by Perry. Love you, John.
Drew at 1 gram.
Lee from Covert Nerd Podcast.
Everybody at Not Your Pastor's Podcast.
Yes, most definitely.
Andy.
And Chuck Borowski. Love you guys.
We saw Chuck this morning at Starbucks, and then we creepily drove by his house. I just want to throw that in there. And our very last person on the list,
Cody.
Hey.
We'll be seeing you very soon. Hopefully not really soon, but maybe soon at Contact. Still looking forward to that.
All right, guys. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at That One Time I Was Abducted. Follow us wherever else we do whatever on the internet, you know, social media and shit. And just before we go, we went to Mountain View, California.
We went to Mountain View, California. We were supposed to make a video and we
forgot.
We
did not. We went to Mountain View. We went to downtown Mountain View. We had delicious pastries. We went to wonderful Indian food.
I bought some candles, a cool mug at this cool spiritual shop. We looked at overpriced crystals.
We did. We had very overpriced.
Oh.
But I do just want to let you guys know that after being in your town, really all I have to say to you is go fuck yourself.
And your truffles are bomb.
Their truffles are really good. If you guys...
Fuck you, but your truffles are cool.
So I will say, if you guys find yourself in Mountain View, California, and you're in the mood for a truffle, go to Alexander's. It is a beautiful little bakery. They stay open until like midnight, and they have these truffles there, but specifically the s'mores truffle.
It's the s'mores truffle. I have to go back and get some more.
Ah! All right. We love you guys so much.
Love you very much.
You, Mountain View.
Have
Bye.
a great week.